David Heatley here from Cycling Inform, and I wanted to talk a little bit about not getting dropped in bunch rides or out in races, but yet still further taking control of those rides. So being the strong person on the front driving the bunch, and in races being the person that's able to bridge across the gaps, create decisive moments and attacks, and really get to the finish line and feeling really, really good. So without further ado, I'll get into the article. Let's talk a little bit about how we do this. Alright, so here's the article here, and basically the magic happens in the E3, VO2 max and ANC zones. Now E3 and VO2 max are very similar in heart rate and power. So down here I've got a list of VO2 max and heart rate, so how you work them out. And with power zones, the VO2 max, ANC and U, there's a description of how to work those out there as well. Alright, so that's really where the magic happens, but just understand it that when you're doing these efforts, that the lift that you get from them is built on the foundation of aerobic based training and strength training that you've done prior. So if you're working through a structured training program like some of the training programs that we offer, we work through the structured build of the aerobic base and the strength work to be able to get a really good lift when you start doing these high intensity training sessions. But let's talk about what's actually happening when we're doing these efforts. So it already comes back to muscle fibers. So when you're doing endurance based training, you're working with your slow twitch type 1 muscle fibers. Alright, so when you're doing the long slow distance training, and we generally do this training out in the weekends, you're working on building your aerobic base. So that's still fundamentally very important to do. Alright, and then you've got these sprinting muscle fibers, type 2B, and they're primarily used for sprinting. Now the thing about these fibers is that they don't last very long. You know, you're looking at about 20 or 30 seconds, so they're not really that helpful for when you're driving a bunch or climbing hills or initiating attacks and those sort of things. You really need some sustained power somewhere between this endurance slow twitch fiber that you can ride at low intensities all day, and between your fast twitch. Unfortunately, we do have this, it's called an intermediate fast twitch type 2A muscle fiber, and that's what we target in these specific indoor training sessions. So down here I've listed some of the examples of some of the indoor training sessions. So if you're looking for sustained power, you know, for sitting on the front of bunches and for extended hill climbs and those sort of things, efforts between 5 and 10 minutes will really help with that, and we've got some fantastic indoor training videos here, 081, 082 and 002 to help you with those. For the short punchy hill climbs, those are those sprinters hills, you know what I'm talking about, those really short sharp punchy hills where you need a lot of power for very short periods of time to punch over them, bunch surges and kicks, and bridging across to breaks. Then the VO2 max efforts are using a heart rate, and ANC and VO2 max efforts using power zones from between 30 seconds to 2 minutes really help improve those. So examples of that is our 001, the Quit Let Ergo, 103, the Quit Let Ergo 2, strength endurance, 023, 080, the rotations for aerobic and strength over threshold efforts, really good combination, and 087, E3 and VO2 max. The brake jumpers and mini brake jumpers we specifically developed for helping people bridge across the brakes and creating brakes. So now, look, if you want to get access to these, you can just click on those. We also have them integrated into all of our training programs, so you can check out our online training center here, and if you're interested, you can also find out what people are saying about our training. So anyway, look, I hope that's been of use. It's been David Heatley here from Cycling Inform.